Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm going to be talking about what I plan to read in 2024, but specifically I'm going to talk about my non-fiction reads. Mainly because my fiction reads will continue to be as sporadic as they always are. I am very much having a good time in just going through all the books I've had on my Amazon basket for so long, and just seeing if they're available in my library and reading those. And a lot of those books are just quite historic in terms that I've probably maybe picked up some recommendation from YouTube, or they've just been books on Goodreads that sounded interesting to me, or they've just been books that I have come across and they've just sat in my basket for so long. So I don't want to do a video on that because it's really not that interesting, if I'm honest. But I wanted to talk about my non-fiction reads specifically because I just feel like in terms of the other things that I'm interested in my life, that's where I'm going to be focusing my non-fiction reads on. Okay, take two, because my battery started dying, and yeah, I really hope everything is in shot and in frame, because I usually have my camera connected to my old laptop, which I can just look at and it's connected and it's like a live viewing. But now I'm just relying on the viewfinder and I will not be able to tell if things are not in frame. But anyway, I wanted to talk about my 2024 non-fiction reads specifically because I feel like they just align with all of my kind of other interests and hobbies, which just won't be visible on this channel. So yeah, and I think quite a lot of them are quite interesting. So anyway, enough talking around the books. So the first book that I'm going to be reading, which has actually been on my list for a while, probably coming up to 2 years I want to say, is Who is Wellness For? And the full title is An Examination of Wellness, Culture and Who It Leaves Behind. This is written by an Australian Bangladeshi Muslim. For myself personally, as I've gotten more into my self-care practices, I have really begun to notice, as you do with many areas, that it is predominantly led by white females. And of course, there is nothing wrong with that. But I do look at this sort of gap and think, why is this only or why are the only faces I see that? But also, does the kind of culture that wellness has, the kind of financial implications that wellness has, really kind of dissuade people from other minority backgrounds in participating in these things? Because I think about myself and the experiences I've had in life and women similar to me and the experiences they've had in life, and I just feel like they need it so much, and I just don't see them in their spaces. So whether they're not aware of it, or whether there are financial implications to that, or whether the other barriers are just simply that they just feel like it's not for them, is something that I've been very interested in, especially in the past year when I have really seen it for myself. But like I said, I've had this book in my basket for up to 2 years, so I was aware of it before, and I just thought, yeah, that's a really good point. I've always wanted that, and so I just want to read this. This is, I think the author has a background in journalism, so I think it is kind of her own personal experience in kind of wellness and self-care, and probably in Australia, maybe in America, because I'm sure she moves to America. But essentially I think she examines, using her journalist experience, the wellness industry in the US, and I guess how it's marketed, what the spaces are like, and really how welcoming that is to people of colour, as well as putting in her own experience. And I'm just really excited to read it because I think it's needed. I think it really is needed. There is definitely a distinct lack of people of colour in these spaces, and it could be for a number of reasons, as I've listed before, but as I've already seen it, I definitely want to read this book and just find out what she attributes as the reasons why, or what she finds out are the reasons why. So definitely next year I'm pushing that further up my list, and it will be one of the books that I read. Also, very quickly on that as well, the reason why I'm really interested in this is because of the origins of some of the practices that I see being used, that I don't see a lot of the faces of the culture that this practice originates from. So that is also what sparked my mind, so I hope she also goes into that. The next book that I want to read is Why Woo-Woo Works, The Surprising Science Behind Meditation, Reiki, Crystals and Other Alternative Practices. I am definitely very much into sound healing. I have a couple of crystals. I'm not really into crystal healing or Reiki actually, but because of the other practices that I have, they all seem to kind of come together. And this book actually recently popped up on my radar, and I am very much interested in it in the sense that I understand kind of what the answer to the question is. It works because you believe it works, and I think that's kind of true for a lot of things. In terms of religion and faith, there are a lot of things in life that happen because you believe you can achieve it. So for me, it's a very simple answer, but I'm intrigued to find out what this author is going to say about that, especially because as I've kind of grown deeper into some of my self-care practices, I see the sort of like eye rolling, or the sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? The kind of disbelief in people when I tell them about these things. And I think I'm always trying to remain like, I'm still a practical person. But I think whatever works for you and whatever helps you to like heal and get through the day is so important to you. And if it works for you, it works for you. But I think, yeah, as I become more into it and more aware of people's reactions, like I do want to read widely around this to find out why it is something that people turn to. Not because I think it's fake or anything like that, but because I think there is something to be said for having those comforts that allow you to go through the day-to-day world. But I think in some cases there might be some scientific research behind it. There might not be, who knows. So in terms of this book, it actually says that the author has been studying the mind-body connection and the power of thoughts for years. And in this book, he explores the 4 key aspects of healing, which is physical, emotional, energetic, and consciousness. So with physical, he's talking about the mind-body connection; emotional, how emotions are stored in your body; energetic, how Reiki and crystals can be used to heal; and then consciousness, prayers, distant healing, and modern scientific and philosophical ideas surrounding consciousness. Why Movie works proves why we shouldn't discount alternative therapies and healing modalities, and reveals the answers you've been looking for. So I'm intrigued to like get into this book. So let's talk about 2 books that I have in front of me. The first one is this, and this is the Psilocybin Handbook for Women: How Magic Mushrooms, Psychedelic Therapy, and Microdosing Can Benefit Your Mental, Physical, and Spiritual Health. So I recently finished reading How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, and he also has a Netflix documentary if you want to just watch the Netflix documentary and get a nice summary kind of what he's talking about in the book. I mean, the book definitely goes more into research and things like that. But the Netflix show, I don't know if it's still on because I think I watched it last year actually, definitely touches on everything he touches on in the book, but I was just like, let me just read the book. The book was really, really insightful, talking about like, you know, different psychedelics and how the history, how it began, the history of it, you know, its sort of origins in terms of like LSD and how it was created, but then other things like ayahuasca, I can never say that properly, and magic mushrooms, and just the kind of like war on drugs, all the things that went on in the States and things like that. I think this book came up as a recommendation on my Amazon, maybe because I'd like searched that book or something, and I was like, how interesting, because I didn't even think about how like mushrooms might affect women and their cycle and all the other things to do with the fact that we have a lot of different biology to men. So that's why I want to read this book. The How to Change Your Mind book was so interesting in terms of its exploration of the beginnings of like psychedelic therapy, and I really follow like organisations like MAPS and some other ones that I've now forgotten on Instagram. But when I saw this, I was like, actually, for just a kind of piece out of curiosity, I'm really intrigued to see what this author is going to say. So this is something I'm going to be reading next year. And then another book that I have picked up this is actually a workbook. So this is called Body Right, a holistic healing and embodiment workbook for Black survivors of sexual trauma. I actually saw this on an Instagram, oh my god, I'm blanking out on the word, an Instagram like channel profile. It's called like the Black Women's Library. I believe they are based in the US, and they basically live to just highlight books published by Black women, which I love because I've just found out so many like lovely recommendations. There's another book in here that I'm going to talk about that's just also from them. And this just came at a really perfect time for me because I dance bachata, and one of the things that I have noticed, like I've been consciously aware of, is this block in myself in like moving my body. And you know, if you read things like The Body Keeps the Score and other things to do with that, you know how trauma is stored in the body. And I think just like a month and a half ago, I just had this kind of awareness and this click that came into my head as to what my sort of block is around my dance and why I feel like I can't progress or can't do certain things. So I heard about this book and I thought, yeah, I'm definitely going to buy it at some point, and then I started actually listening to it on script. But because it is a workbook, I know it has like elements in it that you can write in and things like that, and it's like illustrated as well. Can't find any of the illustrations at the moment, don't know if you can see that. So I thought it was just worth me getting the physical copy as well. I started listening to it just so I could get a sense of what the book has in it and see like if I felt like it would be relevant to me, if it spoke at the right tone, and it just hits all the right notes. She's so kind in this book, and she calls like people beloved and things like that. So yeah, this is something I'm going to read and work through in 2024, and I'm just really glad like a resource like this exists, because yeah, as you can see, it is for Black survivors, and I think whilst it is very much Americanized, I think it is important that there is a resource out there that is just, you know, targeted towards the kind of the experiences, and it's not only like, you know, sexual trauma affects Black women, but I think it's nice to have those resources that you feel are kind of created for you in mind. The next book I'm planning on reading next year, and it actually comes out next year, I've not pre-ordered it, I'll just buy it when it comes out. It's called Sound Healing: How to Use Sound to Beat Stress and Anxiety. I went to my first sound bath in 2022, yes, in like July 2022. I didn't know what it was, but it was on at my yoga studio, and I was just like, I'm gonna just go see what it's like. And I absolutely fell in love. I had the most tremendous experience. I absolutely loved it. And since then, I've gone to a couple of other sound baths, and actually this year, I did a level 1 sound healing course with the woman who ran the first sound bath that I went to. Just because in every single time that I have been to a sound kind of bath or had a massage and it's incorporated sound bowls, you know, like those singing bowls, I have loved it. I have just felt like it is one of the most transformative things. So I actually went to the healing course, the sort of course, just because like I really adore the teacher, and I just wanted to learn what went into this thing that I'm so interested in now. I now actually have my own sound bowl, so how exciting. But I saw this book from this author who I follow again on Instagram, and that she was coming out with it, and I was like, it would be nice to kind of, again, I think I am one of those people that I am so into any of these like self-care practices, but again, I am kind of wanting to know the science behind it, if there is science behind it, and if there isn't, it's not like I will disregard it, of course, but you know, it's nice to hear like people's experiences and any sort of research that they have looked into, and just any anecdotes that they have. So this is written by a sound healer, and I'll just read a little bit from the blurb. It says here, we already use sound as a form of self-care, from self-soothing with music to immersing ourselves with the noises of nature to promote calm. This book is a natural next step for those looking to delve more deeply into the power of sound. Cutting through the noise, Fazana Ali digs deep into the science to explain its full therapeutic and restful potential. She considers a number of topics such as the different types of therapeutic sound, from vibroacoustic massage to soundscapes and creativity fueling sound baths, the role of sound on the brain and why, for example, Himalayan sound bowls work, the benefits of sound healing, what connects sound healing to mindfulness and being in nature, and how sound healing works as a form of passive rest. So definitely, because I have experienced these things for myself, I am interested in how it works, you know, and just why like I feel these things. Not all things can be explained, but when I saw this book and like I follow her Instagram profile, I don't know why I'm blanking on words today, I was just like, yeah, I definitely want to read this. So this is definitely a read for 2024, especially because I don't think there's any other books on sound healing in my sort of priority list, or at all, really. I'm going to talk to you about 2 more books, and I'll start with an explanation from a book that I read earlier this year. Actually, wait, let me go and get that book. So the book is this, which is Return to Source, Unlock the Power of African-Centered Wellness. So, like I said when I was talking about the Who is Wellness For book, again, earlier this year, as I kind of was going to more of these practices and things like that, I was just like struck by the fact that a lot of these practices come from different parts of the world. And I see a lot of the practices being taken on in Glasgow, that's where I live, and I'm sure like it's rife in London as well. But I'm just like, surely there are healing practices from Africa. Like, it's a major continent, and I know it is a place that is connected to the spiritual, connected to the divine. So I'm like, why are there like no practices do I see coming from like that part of the world? And then I like literally a month later, like I saw this on the Hay House Instagram, and I was like, hey, I need to get this. So this book wasn't what I wanted it to be, but what it did do was kind of spark that inspiration in me, and also name a couple of other resources. And I did start listening to one, but I didn't like the listening experience, so I'm going to change to reading it. However, these next 2 books are focused on kind of like Africa and African healing traditions and just the history of that. So that's why I'm really excited to like get to these. So the first one is, when my computer allows me, yeah. Orishas, I hope I'm saying that right, goddesses and voodoo queens, the divine feminine in the African religious traditions. This again is the other book that I saw on the Black Feminist Library one. This book explores, it's an exploration of the goddesses of the West African spiritual traditions and their role in shaping Yoruba, and then it's naming some other like tribes. And again, I just know that the African culture, obviously I'm from Ghana, West Africa, has so much connection in terms of its gods and goddesses that that they practiced before Christianity was brought to them. So I know there's a rich history there, and so I want to learn more about those people. You know, I feel like, not that I know tons about like other gods and stuff, but I hear about them all the time, and I'm more curious in the practices that come from the part of the world that my family and my ancestors are from. So a little bit on the book. It says that this book shows you how to celebrate and cultivate the traits of these goddesses, drawing upon their strengths to empower your own life. In addition to offering a guided tour of the key goddesses of the African religious tradition, the book offers magical spells, rituals, potions, and astrological correspondences, sacred offerings, and much more to help guide you on your own transformational journey. So the other aspect of kind of, you know, the rituals, the magic spells and stuff like that, again, I wouldn't say I'm really into spells and things like that, that might change, but I am very much interested in learning about the origins and the history of these goddesses, so that's why I'm really excited to read this book. So the final book, and something that I'm very excited to read, it is called African Holistic Health. And it says this book addresses health issues from a comprehensive African-centered viewpoint. It provides a complete guide to herbal medicine remedies along with homeopathic disease treatments, and talks about what makes African holistic health truly unique. And yeah, I am really excited to read this one. Again, I'm not someone that has a lot of experience or even really does any like home remedies and things like that, but I am definitely interested again in picking up sort of wellness and self-care from an African perspective, and just seeing like what people use, like, you know, back in the day, probably still currently, I say probably definitely still currently, because these practices are still in existence in Africa. It's not like they've gone away, but I definitely know, I guess they're more shunned as we kind of move further into the years. But yeah, I'm really excited for 2024 and centering my sort of non-fiction reads around my interest. A lot of my non-fiction reads in the past have just been around things that I thought sounded interesting. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I feel like for 2024, I'm definitely tailoring it on the things that I am personally interested in, and then just going with that. So I'm definitely really excited for these reads. I hope they are what I want them to be, but if not, I feel like they always lead you to other books, which is perfectly fine, which is not something I mind at all. But just looking at my story graph really quickly, my reads have been made up of 74% fiction and 26% non-fiction. That's 23 non-fiction books and 65 fiction books. And also bear in mind that the non-fiction book count will include poetry collections, so the actual like non-fiction books themselves are far less, because I think I have read quite a few poetry collections this year. But yeah, I'm excited for 2024, and let me know if any of these books sound interesting to you, if there are any books around this sort of subject that you might also recommend. Have a very wonderful, I feel like this video is going to go up in 2024, so I hope you had a really good new year, and yeah, excited to see what this year brings. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in another video. Bye.